The silly season is slowly but surely getting near to its end, but that doesn't mean massive shakeups are not going to happen in 2025, and the drivers won't rush to find new solutions for their careers once the new regulations settle in. While it's becoming obvious that Verstappen will try to defend the fourth championship in 2025 if something doesn't go utterly wrong in the last 10 races of the current season, that will definitely be a huge challenge that could push him towards other waters, and even drivers like Sainz, Russell, Perez and a lot of new rookies could be on the move too. With all this in mind, should we expect a new shakeup sooner rather than later? It's safe to say that Formula One is a sport in which there are a lot of movements and a lot of drivers are ready to change their environment in a blink of an eye. And as of now, this blink is purely focused on Verstappen. The three-time world champion has stated loud and clear that what he and Red Bull have is very pure and rare in terms of loyalty and respect towards each other, but that the decision as to where he'll drive in the foreseeable future will be brought without emotion. Verstappen believes that this will always backfire on his career if he gets to choose based on his emotions and not the overall state and condition in which Red Bull found themselves into the mid-season development. And as the team went on to confirm that not a lot of changes could be found on the RB20, the situation with the RB21 might not be any better either. All of this has forced the Verstappen clan to look into other possibilities for the Dutchman, and two of the most highly emerging ones are Mercedes and Aston Martin, with the accent being on the Silver Arrows much more than the Silverstone-based squad. The fight for 2025 might be over because Antonelli is going to Mercedes in an announcement that should be public around Monza, but for 2026, Russell's contract is expiring, and Wolff will do anything he can to pair up a talent like Antonelli and a superstar like Verstappen, which would put Russell in a position to find a seat elsewhere on the grid. Wolff has openly admitted that he will be looking at the situation in Red Bull a lot closer, and the development that the team has made with this season's car is not something that we should be overlooking because it will very well translate heavily into positive results for 2025 when the season restarts. Winning 2 of the last 3 races and having a total of 3 wins in the 2024 season, which is enough for the second place on the grid regarding this matter, Mercedes have even bigger plans for 2025, as they're going to use it to lure a driver like Verstappen in their own camp. Talking about these changes and what the next year's car is going to look like, Andrew Chauvelin, the trackside engineer of Mercedes, said, "I think, aerodynamically, our car and most people's cars will be an evolution of what we have today. There will be significant changes on there, but you won't have to change the architecture of the car and take a big hit in the wind tunnel that you have to recover. I don't think many people will be doing that. We are at the stage now where we're trying to evaluate the chassis and the gearbox to look for the best return for you to spend in the cost cap." All of this, as well as the progress being made on the track, has put Mercedes in quite a good position to land Verstappen, because this is something that makes the team greater than everyone else, their determination and their will to rise up from where they were at the beginning of the season. However, a huge challenge for them will be Aston Martin when it comes to Max Verstappen, because the Silverstone-based squad has now brought some highly experienced personnel from Mercedes and Red Bull, with Newey being the latest addition, and Lawrence Stroll is likely to pursue Verstappen from 2026 onwards when the team expects to be fully within reach of both championships. Former F1 driver Robert Dornbos, who's a very close friend of Eddie Jordan, the manager of Newey, as well as with Adrian himself, stated that while the most likely destination for Verstappen in 2026 is Mercedes, due to the internal issues in the team ravaging the atmosphere massively and hurting the chances of a peaceful environment to work in, there will be a huge chance and an offer from Aston Martin that the Dutchman might find hard to deny. This would leave a very empty nest in Red Bull that, quite frankly, they don't have a driver ready to step in and to deliver the results that Verstappen did, especially given the fact that he's won almost everything that could be won from 2022 onwards and went head-to-head in one of the most controversial seasons in the sport, back in 2021 with Lewis Hamilton. Red Bull knows what they're about to lose, and that is why they might revert to a bit more experienced drivers, like Sainz, who does have a clause in his contract with Williams that allows him to leave for a more competitive team in case a seat opens up. But that clause is for 2025, and while the goals for Sainz is to help the team elevate themselves to the midfield and potentially fight for big points, I highly doubt that he will pass on the chance to be in Red Bull if the opportunity presents itself to him, because even if the team is in downfall, they will still be a regular podium and race win contenders, which is something that Sainz is currently experiencing with Ferrari only under the shadow of Leclerc. Now, if he isn't the driver who will potentially replace Verstappen, then Red Bull will be forced to promote within, and Horner as well as Marko were adamant that the drivers they have right now, although full of talent, are not good enough to replace even Perez, who went on to score 28 points in the last 8 races in arguably one of the fastest cars on the grid. If this scenario is to strike Red Bull, then drivers like Tsunoda or Lawson could be finding themselves in the seat of Verstappen. But even Perez himself is not going to be secured, because the only reason they're keeping him right now is because of the lead they have in the Drivers' Championship and the effort that Max is pulling in order to keep them P1 in the Constructors category as well. In this scenario, Racing Bulls would return to their old role of a junior team like Marko stated, and this goes heavily in that direction because Marko himself said that the cards will be reshuffled again in 2025, meaning that a lineup of Lawson and the current F2 Championship leader and a product of Red Bull's academy, Hadjar, are going to be part of the Faenza-based squad from 2026 onwards. Again, this is the season where everything is going to change, and the engine regulations as well as the chassis changes could catch some of the top teams by surprise in the same way they caught Mercedes back in 2022, which is why there's a lot at stake even for the lower bracket teams like Haas and Williams, who are now heavily investing in 2026. As for Perez, a very interesting home could appear in the form of Audi, and even though the team is not likely to wait a full year for his signature because of the fact that the Austrian team will judge the Mexican driver's performance after the end of 2024, if there is intel about the dropout of Perez and replacement with a driver like Ricciardo, then Audi has nowhere to rush. After all, the talents in the market, while being plenty available, do not have that many places to go for 2025. And this could be a very interesting situation in which Perez and Hülkenberg will be the starting lineup for the German team as early as 2025, or potentially even 2026. All of this is slowly but surely shaping up to be a very interesting turn of events, as a lot of drivers will see themselves without a seat too, with the greatest risk being on Valtteri Bottas. The Finn has admitted that talks with Audi have come to a reset now that the entire structure of the team has been changed, and it didn't help that Binotto wants to bring a driver like Bortoleto in the squad from 2025 onwards, which means that we shouldn't be surprised if we're looking at the last couple of races from the 10-time race winner with Mercedes. With this in mind, where do you think the drivers will end up from 2026 onwards? And more importantly, who do you think will be in the biggest gain once the new regulations kick in? Let us know in the comments below.